This is a quiet night. The moon hangs high in the soft indigo sky, round and luminous, spilling silvery glow over rooftops, rustling tree leaves, quiet neighborhood streets, and your bedroom window. Gentle moonlight drifts across your cozy blankets, resting lightly on your hair and your closed palms, wrapping you in a feeling of pure, unhurried safety. Your breath moves slow and steady, in and out, in and out, a calm, rhythmic melody that matches the quiet world around you. Outside, soft crickets hum their nightly lullaby, a faint breeze whispers through garden branches, and the distant rustle of night air creates the perfect peaceful atmosphere for rest. There is no rush here, no noise, no worry, only warmth, stillness, and the gentle promise of a deep, restoring sleep. If you pause and listen closely, you might sense something truly wonderful all around you tonight. Invisible, endless power. It hums softly in the walls of your home. It glimmers silently in the night sky. It flows gently through the wind and the distant ocean tides. In our modern world, we are surrounded by clean, gentle, endless sources of light and energy that our ancestors could never have imagined in their wildest dreams. This is why tonight's bedtime story about invention is so special. It is not just a history for kids and grown-ups, but a soft journey that connects the very first spark of human-made electric light to the incredible green energy miracles we cherish today. This is a calm, soothing bedtime story for adults and family, crafted to let you drift into relaxation while understanding the beautiful, long chain of hope and hard work that built our bright modern world. Can you feel the quiet comfort of endless power surrounding you right now? You do not need to answer aloud. Simply let the thoughts settle softly in your heart as you sink deeper into your pillow, more relaxed and at peace with every breath. Look up for just a moment at the dark night sky. High above your home, countless solar panels rest silently on rooftops, in vast sunlit fields, and atop quiet hillsides across the world. All day long, they soak up the free, endless warmth and brightness of the sun, capturing sunlight and turning it into clean, gentle electricity. Even on cloudy days, even on quiet nights when the sun has set, the energy stored from solar power lingers, powering our homes, our lights, our devices, and our lives. Solar energy is soft, renewable, and kind to our world, a gift born from the very first idea that humans could harness light to serve life. Modern solar technology has evolved endlessly since those first electric sparks, from tiny experimental cells decades ago to massive solar farms that power entire cities. Yet every upgrade traces back to Edison's core belief that light and power should be captured, controlled, and shared for all humanity. Can you hear the faint, distant whisper of wind outside your window? That gentle moving air is another incredible modern miracle. Wind power. Tall, graceful wind turbines stand in quiet fields and along coastal shores, their long blades turning slowly and peacefully with the breeze. They turn ordinary wind movement into endless electricity. No smoke, no waste, no darkness, just pure, natural power that lights up towns, cities, and homes across the globe. Once, humans could only fear the dark wind of night. Now, we gently guide the wind to bring us endless light and warmth. Every turbine's rotation relies on the foundational understanding of electrical current and power conversion that Edison and his team perfected in their small Menlo Park laboratory all those years ago. And far beyond the quiet boundaries of your neighborhood, along the endless edges of the ocean, another quiet miracle unfolds with every rising and falling wave, tidal energy. The ocean's tides shift and flow with the pull of the moon, steady and unchanging, day after day, night after night. Modern technology captures this gentle, rhythmic movement of the sea, turning ocean waves and tides into clean, reliable electricity. Sun, wind, and sea. Three endless gifts from nature that we now turn into light and power for every corner of our modern world. Tidal power, one of the newest and most sustainable forms of green energy, would not exist without the basic electrical systems, vacuum technology, and power storage principles born from Edison's relentless experiments with the incandescent bulb. Every single one of these modern green energy wonders traces its roots back to one single, fragile, brave spark in 1879. Every solar panel soaking up sunlight, every wind turbine spinning in a breeze, every tidal generator humming with ocean power, all began with the very first electric light bulb that refused to burn out. Before we could capture the sun, the wind, and the sea to power our world, we first had to learn how to hold a single, steady spark of electric light through the long dark night. That is the quiet magic of history. Every huge, world-changing miracle starts with one small, persistent dream, one brave attempt, one person who refused to give up when all was dark. Close your eyes now, my precious one. Let go of all modern sights and sounds. Let go of solar power, wind turbines, and glowing city lights. Let go of phones, screens, and quiet home electricity. Breathe slow, breathe deep, and travel back with me, far back through time, more than 140 years ago, to the quiet, shadowed world of 1879. This world you now step into is completely untouched by modern technology. There are no electric streetlights glowing after dark, no soft indoor lamps, no hum of hidden power in the walls. There are no cars rolling down paved roads, no electric fans, no warm electric heaters, no glowing night lights to chase away the shadows. The roads are soft dirt, packed firm by decades of horse hooves and walking feet, turning dark and muddy whenever the rain falls. Small wooden homes line quiet village streets, there. Slope-shingled roofs holding fallen leaves and evening dew, their tiny glass windows fogging easily with cool night air. Every building, every street, every corner of this world sinks deep into shadow the moment the sun dips below the distant treetops. The air of 1879 holds scents we rarely smell in our modern green energy world. There is no faint hum of electric machinery, no clean filtered air, no subtle warmth of modern power. Instead, the evening air smells of crackling wood smoke from family fireplaces, fresh baked bread cooling on wooden windowsills, damp earth from evening dew, and the sharp, thin, slightly bitter scent of burning kerosene. It is the smell of a world that lives entirely dependent on fire and flame for every drop of light after sunset, a world that fears the night, because the night means darkness, limitation, and early stillness. Can you imagine living in a world where sunset meant the end of nearly every joy, every task, every quiet pleasure of the day? Can you picture how different life would feel when darkness covered the entire world, thick and unbroken, with only tiny, flickering flames to push it back? In 1879, light was not a gift freely available to everyone. Light was a luxury, a precious, costly thing that only the fortunate could afford. Wealthy families lived in large, sturdy homes with spacious parlors and fine wooden furniture. They could afford clean, sweet beeswax candles that burned bright without heavy smoke or foul smell. They could install gas lighting in their homes, casting steady golden glow across their rooms long after sunset. Rich children could read storybooks late into the evening, play games with their families, sit and talk by warm light, and study their lessons without straining their eyes. For the wealthy, the night was gentle, bright, and full of possibility, but for almost everyone else, for ordinary working families, for farmers, for shop workers, for newsboys and seamstresses and laborious, the night was short, dim, and limiting. Poor families could never afford clean beeswax candles or expensive gas lighting. Instead, they relied on tallow candles made from rendered animal fat, thick and crude. These candles burned quickly, sputtered constantly, filled small rooms with thick black smoke, and left a heavy burnt meat scent hanging in the air. Their flame was tiny and weak, so dim that you could barely make out words on a page or tiny stitches on fabric unless you leaned impossibly close, straining your eyes until they ached and burned. Many families saved their few tallow candles only for true emergencies. For daily evening use, they relied on kerosene lamps, slightly brighter than tallow candles, but far more dangerous and taxing. Kerosene was costly, eating up precious pennies that poor families needed for bread, rent, and warm winter clothes. The thin glass lamps smoked heavily, staining wooden walls and ceilings black with soot after just a few nights of use. Their fumes stung the eyes, caused headaches, and made small stuffy rooms feel thick and hard to breathe. Worst of all, kerosene lamps were fragile and risky. One small bump, one accidental knock, and the flaming lamp would tip over, igniting wooden floors, cloth curtains, and dry bedding in an instant. Fire was a constant, terrifying fear for every family living with kerosene light. Because light cost so much, ordinary people could not afford to keep their lamps burning for leisure, for reading, for learning, or for quiet family time after dark. Every drop of kerosene was counted, every minute of light treasured. As soon as daily chores were finished, families blew out their lamps and surrendered to the night. There was no staying up late to read, no finishing work gently after sunset, no quiet evening learning. The dark dictated their lives, limiting their dreams, their growth, and their joy. This was the quiet, unspoken unfairness of the 1800s. Darkness was not just a lack of light, it was a barrier that kept ordinary people from growing, learning, and thriving. This limited, dark world was the only home a kind 10-year-old boy named Tommy had ever known. Tommy was a small, gentle newsboy with bright, curious eyes and a heart full of longing for stories and learning. Every single day of his young life began long before the sunrise. At 4 o'clock each morning, while the entire town still lay deep in sleep, while the moon still ruled the dark sky, Tommy rose from his thin straw mattress. He pulled on his well-worn wool shirt, patched 3 times by his older sister Lily, and slipped his feet into oversized worn boots stuffed with soft rags to keep his small toes warm. He splashed cold well water on his sleepy face, grabbed his faded cloth cap with the bent brim worn smooth from years of use, and stepped out into the crisp, frosty morning dark. The early morning air bit softly at his cheeks, fresh and clean, filled with the scent of dewy grass and the first thin wood smoke rising from a few early chimneys. Tommy walked 2 long miles along the quiet dirt road to the train station, his boots crunching softly over thin morning frost. On every single trip, he stopped at Mrs. Henderson's warm neighborhood bakery. The kind baker always saved a fresh warm bread roll for Tommy, no charge, knowing he had no time for breakfast before his long day of work. "You keep going, sweet boy," she would whisper gently, pressing the warm bread into his cold small hands. "Your hard work will mean something one day." Tommy would nod quietly, biting into the soft sweet bread as he continued his walk, holding her kindness close in his heart. The train station. The kind conductor Mr. Smith waited for him with a thick stack of fresh newspapers, still warm from the printing press. City newspapers, local town papers, stories of new inventions, distant news, and town gossip were all bundled together for Tommy to sell across the village. Tommy carefully rolled each paper tight and wrapped them in oilcloth, to protect them from morning dew or unexpected rain. He never wasted a single paper, never dropped one, never ruined one. Every sale mattered for his struggling family. All day long, Tommy walked endless miles across town, through village streets, past small farms, up to the wealthy houses on the hill, and back again to the train station. His small voice would call softly, "Papers, fresh news, stories of the wizard's new light invention." He spoke gently, never loud or pushy, always polite, always grateful for every sale. Each newspaper cost 2 cents wholesale, sold for 3 cents, earning Tommy just 1 single cent per paper sold. On his very best days, he sold 100 papers and earned $1 whole. On most days, he earned 50 to 70 cents, barely enough to cover his family's $10 monthly rent, their simple bread and bean meals, and their tiny supply of kerosene and candles. Every single penny he earned was saved or spent carefully, with no room for waste or luxury. Occasionally, after a very good day, he would tuck a few spare pennies into his secret tin savings box under his bed, dreaming of buying a new book to read. One cool autumn afternoon, Tommy sold a newspaper to 80-year-old Mr. Thompson, the town's longtime blacksmith. Mr. Thompson's hands were thick, gnarled, and scarred from decades of hammering hot iron. His face was lined deep with sun, wind, and the weariness of a lifetime lived in darkness. After paying for his paper, he pressed 2 extra pennies into Tommy's palm and smiled softly. "You're a hard-working little soul," he said quietly. "Let me tell you something about this dark world we live in. When I was your age, night was something to fear. No lights, no safe streets, no way to see where you're stepping. One night when I was 16, I walked home late from a shop, and the dark was so thick I stumbled straight into a deep muddy ditch. I broke my leg and lay there alone for 3 cold hours until someone finally found me. Back then, we all believed night was meant for hiding, for staying small, for stopping all living. I've waited 80 years to see a better way. I hope that Wizard Edison truly brings us light, so kids like you never have to fear the dark like we did." Tommy's young heart ached deeply as he listened. He nodded solemnly, tucking the extra pennies safely away. "I hope so too, sir," he whispered. As he walked away, Mr. Thompson's words lingered in his mind, weaving into his own quiet dreams. He knew fear of the dark well. He knew the frustration of having to stop living, stop learning, stop dreaming simply because the sun had set. He knew how his mother's eyes strained and burned each night, how his sister grew tired and weary from working in dim shadow. More than anything in the world, Tommy hoped for a light that would change everything. Tommy's family was small and quiet, bound tight by love and struggle. His father had passed away from a severe fever 2 years prior, leaving Tommy's mother to raise him and his 16-year-old sister Lily entirely alone. Tommy's mother worked as a village seamstress, sewing fine dresses and clothes for the wealthy families on the hill. During every daylight hour, she washed laundry for neighboring homes to earn extra coins. Only after sunset could she sit down to her sewing work, leaning over rough fabric and tiny delicate stitches by the faint glow of their cheap kerosene lamp. Every single evening without fail, Lily joined their mother at the wooden kitchen table to help sew hems, attach small buttons, and tidy fabric edges. The family depended entirely on this evening work to pay their rent and buy their simple food. The lamp's dim flickering glow was their only evening tool, forcing them to hunch forward, inches from the smoky glass flame, straining their eyes to see every tiny detail. There was no choice, no alternative, no easier way to survive. Night after night, their eyes stung and watered from the kerosene fumes. Their shoulders ached from constant hunching. The white wooden wall behind their lamp slowly turned thick black with soot, no matter how hard they scrubbed each weekend. The dim light made simple work slow and exhausting, turning short tasks into hours of weary labor. Tommy watched his mother and sister grow tired and worn before his eyes, night after night, and his heart grew heavy with a quiet, unspoken wish. Someday, there would be enough light for them to work easily, safely, without pain or strain. Tommy loved reading more than anything in the whole world. He had learned to read at the small village one-room schoolhouse, but he could only attend classes during the short winter months. All spring, summer, and fall, he was forced to work full-time selling newspapers to keep his family fed and housed. Even so, he fell deeply in love with books, stories of brave knights, faraway kingdoms, ocean adventures, and quiet heroic journeys. He dreamed endlessly of reading every book he could find. Slowly, patiently, he saved his hard-earned pennies in his dented tin box under his bed, counting each coin every night before sleep. After months of careful saving, he finally collected 25 cents, enough to buy a tattered second-hand copy of Robinson Crusoe from a village old bookshop. The day he bought that book was the happiest day of his young life. The book's cover was faded and worn, its pages soft and yellowed with age, filled with faint handwritten notes from its previous owner. Tommy held it gently in both hands like a priceless treasure, breathing in the old warm scent of paper and ink, his heart bursting with joy. He could not wait to dive into the story of the brave sailor surviving alone on a distant island. But joy quickly faded into sorrow, because Tommy had almost no time to read his precious new book. Every single daylight moment was spent walking miles to sell newspapers. There was no free time for reading, no quiet afternoon hours to turn pages and explore new worlds. And at night, the kerosene lamp was reserved entirely for his mother and sister's essential sewing work. Every drop of kerosene was too precious, too expensive, to waste on a child's storybook reading. A single gallon of kerosene cost 15 cents, nearly half of Tommy's average daily earnings. His family could only afford 1 gallon per week, meaning every minute of lamplight had to go towards survival, not joy or learning, so Tommy waited patiently every night until his mother and Lily finished their sewing. Only in the final 5 minutes before they blew out the lamp entirely would he lean forward, inches from the flickering flame, squinting hard to decipher a page or two of his book. He sounded out difficult words slowly, cherishing every sentence, memorizing every detail, desperate to absorb as much of the story as possible before darkness fell again. One quiet, restless night, Tommy could not stop thinking about Robinson Crusoe's island adventure. Curiosity burned too bright in his heart to sleep. Quietly, so he would not wake his sleeping family, he crept out of bed and retrieved their single emergency tallow candle. He lit the tiny sputtering flame and sat alone at the wooden kitchen table, reading 3 full pages of his beloved book before the candle burned completely away, leaving him surrounded once again by thick, silent dark. Tommy's heart sank with guilt. He had wasted their only emergency candle, a precious reserve saved for storms or broken lamps. He sat alone in the dark, book resting on his lap, eyes stinging not from smoke but from sadness. But his mother woke softly in the next room and found him there, quiet and disappointed. Instead of scolding him, she knelt beside him, wrapped her warm arms around his small shoulders, and whispered gently, "I know your heart hungers for stories, my sweet boy. I know you long to learn and grow. We will save harder. We will try harder. One day, I promise, there will be enough light for all of us, enough light for you to read as long as you wish." Tommy rested his head on his mother's shoulder and let quiet tears fall. He knew how hard she worked, how much she sacrificed every single day for him and Lily. In that dark moment, his tiny personal dream blended into something bigger, a dream of bright, free, endless light for every family, every child, every hard-working person trapped by the limitations of night. He closed his precious book gently, placed it safely under his bed, and lay down to sleep. As he stared up at the moon glowing through his small window, he wondered if anyone in the world was working to chase away the darkness forever. What if there was a light that never flickered, never smoked, never cost endless pennies? What if children could read at night without straining their eyes? What if mothers and sisters could work safely and easily without pain? What if the dark no longer limited hope, learning, or joy? This quiet, heartfelt dream lived in hundreds of ordinary hearts across the country, in newsboys, seamstresses, blacksmiths, mothers, and children. And one brilliant, persistent man chose to turn all those quiet dreams into reality. Thomas Alva Edison, the kind, curious inventor the whole village called the Wizard of Menlo Park. Thomas Edison was not a flashy, loud genius. He was a quiet, hard-working man who believed deeply in ordinary people's dreams. He had already invented the phonograph, a miraculous machine that could capture and replay human sound and music, something no one in the 1800s could believe was possible. Villagers whispered that he was a wizard, that he practiced magic, because how else could a machine hold sound? But Edison knew it was not magic. It was curiosity, patience, and endless hard work. Edison built a large wooden laboratory on the quiet edge of Menlo Park, filled with tools, glass tubes, metal wires, chemical mixtures, experimental machines, and shelves overflowing with books and notes. While the world still relied on fire and flame for light, Edison dedicated his entire life to one gentle, radical goal: creating safe, affordable, clean electric light for every single home, rich or poor. Can you imagine how hopeful the whole town felt, knowing someone was finally trying to chase away the darkness forever? Little Tommy heard all the village stories about Edison's electric light experiments. Everyone whispered of a new kind of light that needed no candles, no kerosene, no gas, a light powered only by invisible electricity. A light that was clean, bright, smokeless, and someday affordable for even the poorest families. Tommy dared not believe it at first. It sounded far too wonderful to be real, far too good for a world so used to darkness and limitation. But one cool autumn evening, after Tommy finished selling his last newspaper, he walked slowly past Edison's laboratory. As he passed the tall wooden building, he froze mid-step, his breath catching softly in his throat. Light, pure, steady, golden light poured from every laboratory window, flooding the surrounding yard, glowing on the tree leaves, illuminating the dark dirt road, bright enough to see every stone and blade of grass. It was brighter than any gas lamp, brighter than dozens of candles, brighter than any light Tommy had ever witnessed in his entire life. It was warm and clean, no smoke curling upward, no foul scent hanging in the air, just pure, gentle, perfect light shining through the night. Tommy stood alone in the middle of the dark road, staring in awe, his heart full of wonder. In that moment, all his doubt faded away. The dream was real. The light was coming. What no village resident fully understood was the unimaginable amount of struggle, failure, and tireless work that had gone into creating that single glowing light. For more than a full year, Edison and his small, dedicated team of workers, whom he affectionately called his muckers, because their hands and clothes were always dusty and stained from endless experiments, worked day and night, pushing past exhaustion, disappointment, and public mockery to build a functional home electric light bulb. Before Edison, electric light already existed in the form of arc lights, huge, blazing, harsh lights used only for large public spaces and street lighting. These lights were far too bright, too hot, too noisy, and too dangerous for home use. They burned intensely, created loud buzzing sounds, and used massive amounts of electricity. No family could safely live with arc lights in their home. Edison's dream was different. He wanted a soft, gentle, safe electric light, sized perfectly for bedrooms, kitchens, and parlors. A light as simple and familiar as a candle, but infinitely cleaner, safer, and longer-lasting. Creating that perfect small light was unbelievably difficult. An incandescent light bulb relies on one tiny, delicate component, a filament. This thin piece of material heats up when electricity flows through it, glowing bright enough to create light without melting or burning away. For the bulb to work, the filament must sit inside a completely airless glass vacuum. Any trace of oxygen would burn the delicate material to ash in seconds. The challenge was finding the perfect filament material. Edison and his team tested absolutely everything they could find, determined to discover what would hold steady, glow bright, and endure for hours on end. They tested platinum, which melted too quickly. They tested raw carbon, which burned instantly without a perfect vacuum. They tested cotton fibers, linen threads, silk strands, human hair, horse whiskers, every variety of hardwood, coconut fiber, flax, paper, rubber, resin, and dozens of natural and chemical materials. They tested over 1,000 different substances in total. Every single failed attempt was carefully recorded in thick handwritten notebooks, filling thousands of pages with observations, measurements, and lessons learned. 1,000 failures. Each one ended in disappointment, burned filaments, and dim, empty darkness. Newspaper reporters across the country mocked Edison relentlessly. They wrote articles declaring his electric light dream impossible, calling him a foolish dreamer wasting time and investor money. Famous university scientists published public letters stating electric home lighting would never exist, that Edison's efforts were a useless fool's errand. Strangers laughed at his persistence, telling him to abandon his useless experiments and return to making successful phonographs. Even members of his own team grew weary and discouraged after months of endless failure. One quiet evening, Francis Upton, the team's gentle mathematician, approached Edison with tired eyes and a heavy heart. "We have tried over 1,000 things," he said softly. "Nothing works. Perhaps the critics are right. Perhaps this is truly impossible. Should we stop?" Edison smiled gently, his eyes calm and full of unshakable hope. He did not feel defeated. He felt closer than ever to success. "We have not failed," he told his team quietly. "We have simply discovered 1,000 ways that do not work. Every single failure eliminates a wrong path and guides us closer to the right one. We have not lost anything. We have learned everything. We will never stop trying." Edison's unbreakable perseverance came from his childhood. As a young boy, his schoolteacher had called him addled, claiming he was too slow and foolish to learn anything. But Edison's mother, a former teacher herself, refused to believe this cruel judgment. She pulled him out of school and taught him at home, filling his mind with curiosity, courage, and the belief that hard work always beats doubt. She taught him that dreams do not die from failure, they die from giving up. This lesson stayed with him through every exhausting night of failed experiments. Edison worked 18 to 20 hours every single day. He napped briefly on a thin cot in the laboratory when exhaustion overwhelmed him, then woke immediately to begin testing again. His loyal team worked equally tirelessly. There was Charles Batchelor, his closest friend and most trusted assistant from England, John Kerosene, the skilled machinist who could build any tiny, intricate part perfectly, and Francis Upton, the mathematician who calculated every electrical measurement with precise care. The entire team lived simply in a nearby boarding house, cared for by the kind landlady Sarah Jordan, who cooked their meals and tended to their tired bodies while they devoted their lives to the light. Through hot summer days and cool autumn nights, they tested, recorded, adjusted, and tried again. They rested only in brief weekend moments, walking local hills, playing simple baseball games, or listening to phonograph music in the boarding house parlor to recharge their tired minds. Through every quiet moment of rest, they never lost sight of their goal, to gift the world safe, endless light. Then came the legendary night of October the 21st, 1879. On this calm, cool autumn evening, the team decided to test carbonized cotton thread, a simple, ordinary material they had tried before, but never with their newly improved, powerful vacuum pump that could remove nearly all air from inside the glass bulb. They took a single thin piece of ordinary cotton thread, softer and finer than a human hair. They carefully carbonized it in a small oven, turning the fragile thread into sturdy pure carbon. With trembling, careful hands, they placed the tiny carbon filament inside a clear hand-blown glass bulb. They attached thin copper wires to connect the filament to electricity, sealed the glass completely airtight, and used their new vacuum pump to suck every trace of oxygen from within the bulb. Once the bulb was fully prepared, the team carried it gently to their testing station, their hearts quiet and heavy with cautious hope. Can you feel the soft, held breath of every person in that laboratory room in this sacred moment? Can you sense their quiet hope after 1,000 disappointments? Edison slowly reached out and turned the electrical switch. For one silent heartbeat, nothing happened. Then, softly, gently, beautifully, the tiny carbon filament bloomed into warm golden light. It glowed steady and pure, no flicker, no smoke, no smell, no heat that burned. It was soft like candlelight but far brighter, cleaner, and more constant. The small glass bulb filled the entire laboratory room with calm, warm, perfect illumination. The entire team froze, staring in stunned, silent wonder. They waited 1 minute, 2 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour, 5 hours, 10 full hours. The light never faded, never sputtered, never burned out. It held steady, glowing peacefully through the long night. The team stayed awake all night to watch their miracle. They sipped simple bitter coffee, shared pieces of bread, and took turns keeping watch, afraid to sleep in case the dream vanished. The cool autumn wind drifted through cracked windows, but they felt no cold. Their hearts were too warm with joy and relief. They spoke in quiet whispers, honoring the fragile, glowing miracle they had created. When the soft pink and orange sunrise painted the morning sky, the bulb was still glowing brightly. In total, that first handmade light bulb lasted 13.5 hours, longer than any electric home light in history had ever burned before. Tears of joy streamed down the faces of every team member. They hugged each other tightly, exhausted and elated. After more than a year of relentless work, after 1,000 failures, after endless mockery and doubt, they had succeeded. They had created the world's first functional, long-lasting, incandescent light bulb. In that moment of pure triumph, Thomas Edison spoke the timeless words that we still cherish today. Genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. Let me explain this gentle truth to you, soft and slow, so your heart understands fully. This famous quote does not mean you must be perfect or extraordinarily clever to do something wonderful. It means every great miracle, every life-changing invention, every beautiful dream come true begins with one tiny spark of inspiration, a small idea, a quiet wish, a hope in your heart. But that spark only grows into something real through endless patience, consistent effort, and the courage to keep trying even when you fail again and again. 1% dream, 99% brave, steady work. That is how light was born. That is how all progress begins. This was only the very beginning of humanity's bright new future. Edison and his team immediately improved their invention. They tested carbonized bamboo next, a strong, flexible natural material that proved even more durable. This new bamboo filament lasted over 1,000 hours, more than 40 full days of steady, clean light. Suddenly, electric light was no longer a fleeting experiment. It was a reliable, usable gift for humanity. By the holiday season of 1879, Edison had filled his laboratory and his personal home with dozens of electric light bulbs. For Christmas, he invited every single resident of Menlo Park, rich and poor, young and old, to come witness the miracle of endless electric light. People walked for miles, bundled in winter coats, staring in or at the glowing house that shone bright as day through the winter night. Children laughed and reached toward the glowing bulbs. Adults stood silent and tearful, touching the smooth warm glass in disbelief, marveling at a world without flickering flame and heavy smoke. On New Year's Eve 1879, Edison achieved another world first. He lit up Christie Street, a quiet village road lined completely with electric street lamps. For the first time in human history, an entire street glowed bright, steady, and safe throughout the night. No torches, no candles, no gas flames. People traveled from New York, Philadelphia, Boston, and cities across the entire Northeast to witness this unbelievable sight. Crowds filled the street, listening to live music, sharing warm food, laughing and dancing under the steady electric light. Children ran freely through the night, playing games and chasing each other for the first time without fear of dark shadows or hidden dangers. Elderly villagers wept openly, grateful to live long enough to see the night transformed from something fearful to something beautiful. Old Mr. Thompson, the blacksmith who had once fallen helpless in the dark ditch, walked slowly along the lit street, his hand resting gently on a glowing lamp post. "I have waited 80 years for this night," he whispered tearfully. "I no longer fear the dark. Thank you for this light." 5-year-old Emily, a little girl who had spent her whole childhood terrified of nighttime shadows, ran laughing under the bright lamps, shouting happily to her mother, "The night is bright. I'm never scared anymore." Tommy attended that magical New Year's celebration with his mother and sister Lily. As he walked along the glowing street, staring at the endless clean golden light, tears filled his eyes. In his heart, he knew everything had changed. No more straining to read by dim flame. No more burning eyes for his mother and sister. No more limited nights. No more lost dreams. No more fear of the dark. The quiet childhood hope he had nurtured for so long was finally real. His mother pulled him close, wiping his soft tears, and whispered, "Dreams do come true, my love. Hard work and hope always light the way." Yet progress, as all gentle history teaches us, never arrives perfectly or all at once. Many people in the 1880s feared electric light. They did not understand invisible electricity flowing through wires, and they believed it was dangerous, unnatural, or even unholy. Some small towns passed laws banning electric lighting entirely, afraid of this unknown new power. Many wealthy families refused to adopt electric light for years, clinging to familiar gas lamps and candles out. Of fear of change. In the earliest days, electricity was also expensive to install and use. Only wealthy households could afford wired homes and consistent electric power. Poor families like Tommy's continued using kerosene lamps for many more years. Change was slow, incremental, and full of small setbacks, but Edison never stopped working to make his invention accessible for everyone. He famously promised, "We will make electricity so cheap that only the rich will burn candles." He dedicated years to building power stations, refining wiring systems, lowering costs, and perfecting safe public electricity access for every community. Slowly, steadily, electric light spread across towns, cities, countries, and eventually the entire world. Homes, schools, shops, hospitals, and streets all began to glow with safe, clean electric light. Nights were no longer limited, fearful, or short. Humanity gained hours of safe, bright time every single day, time for learning, creating, working, connecting, dreaming, and growing. Now, let us pause to honor 3 ordinary people whose quiet lives were forever transformed by Edison's light. The stories of everyday heroes who show us how history changes regular lives, not just famous ones. First, there was the village tailor's 12-year-old daughter, Clara. Before electric light, Clara could only learn sewing during short daylight hours. After sunset, her mother could not teach her new stitches or patterns, for fear of ruining their eyes in dim flame. Light. Once electric light arrived in their small shop, Clara began learning evening sewing lessons every night. She grew into a skilled, talented tailor, creating beautiful clothing for her community and building a stable, happy life for her family. The light gave her skill, purpose, and a future she never could have had in the dark. Second, there was a young shepherd boy named Elias, who spent his days herding village sheep in the hills. Before electric lighting, village school only held daytime classes, and Elias could never attend because of his herding duties. Once schools installed electric lights, evening school classes began for working children like him. Elias attended night school every evening after his herding work, learning to read, write, and study mathematics. He grew up to become a village teacher, educating generations of young children, all because a single light bulb gave him access to learning after dark. Third, there was a gentle widowed schoolteacher named Mrs. Hale. Before electric light, she could only grade student papers and prepare lessons during daylight hours, limiting how many children she could teach and how carefully she could support her students. With steady electric light, she worked calmly each evening, preparing thoughtful lessons, writing encouraging notes to children, and expanding her small school to serve more village families. Her kindness and dedication touched hundreds of young lives, all made possible by safe evening light. These 3 quiet, ordinary stories remind us that great inventions are never just about technology. They are about real people, real dreams, real lives made brighter, easier, and fuller. Decades past, Edison's humble light bulb sparked an entire global revolution in electrical power and innovation. Every electrical advancement we enjoy today traces its roots back to that 1879 laboratory breakthrough. The power lines that carry electricity to our homes, the batteries that store energy, the power stations that generate consistent power all grew from Edison's original work. And most beautifully of all, his legacy evolved into our modern green energy revolution. The solar panels that capture sunlight today exist because humans first learned to harness and control electric light. The wind turbines that turn breeze into power exist because we mastered safe electrical generation. The tidal systems that convert ocean waves into endless clean energy exist because one persistent inventor refused to quit chasing a single steady spark of light. Every clean, renewable energy source protecting our planet today is a direct descendant of that first glowing bulb in Menlo Park. Can you see the beautiful, unbroken chain connecting 1879's tiny carbon filament to today's endless green power? Every modern miracle of sustainable energy stands on the foundation of one person's courage to fail 1,000 times and try once more. Progress always carries gentle struggles and setbacks. In the early days of Electric power. Many communities faced uneven access, unfair pricing, and slow adoption. Many marginalized families waited years longer for electric light than wealthy neighborhoods. Even today, parts of our world still lack reliable power, reminding us that progress is never fully complete. We must always keep working to share light, opportunity, and safety with every person on Earth. This gentle history holds a quiet, powerful lesson for you, my dear one. The freedom to read at night, to learn, to create, to work safely, to play freely after dark, to rest in bright, secure homes. All these simple, precious rights were fought for by persistent dreamers and ordinary hard-working people. Light, in all its forms, is never something to take for granted. Light must be cherished, protected, and shared. You carry the same power as Thomas Edison, as little Tommy, as Clara, Elias, and Mrs. Hale. You have the power to persist through small failures, to nurture quiet dreams, to bring warmth and brightness to the lives of others. Every kind word, every patient effort, every refusal to quit when things feel hard is your own version of lighting a spark in the dark. Now, let us gently travel back to your quiet bedroom, back to this peaceful modern night. The moon still glows soft and bright outside your window, just as it did in 1879. The wind still whispers gently through the trees. The world is calm, safe, and bright around you. You are surrounded by the cumulative light of 1,000,000 brave attempts, 1,000 failures, endless hard work, and boundless human hope. You benefit from solar power, wind energy, tidal power, and electric light, miracles built step by step, year by year, by dreamers who refuse to surrender to darkness. Your body is soft and heavy with relaxation, your mind calm and unhurried. All worries fade away into the quiet night. The light around you is steady, safe, and kind, gifted to you by generations of persistent, hopeful people. Rest deeply now. Let your heart hold the gentle truth. Darkness never wins forever. Hope and hard work always light the way. Every small spark can grow into endless, world-changing light. May your dreams be bright, your rest be peaceful, and your heart always carry the courage to light up the world in your own gentle way. Good night, sweet one. Sleep softly, and shine brightly always as your eyes grow heavier and your breathing slows to an even softer rhythm. Allow yourself to sink deeper into the comfort of your warm bed. There is no rush to wake, no task to finish, no worry to hold on to. All is calm, all is well in this quiet moment. The endless green energy of the sun, wind, and tides continues to hum softly across the world, unseen but ever present, just like the quiet hope that lives within your gentle heart. Every night, as you rest, you are surrounded by the legacy of every person who dared to dream of a brighter world. Tommy's childhood wish, Edison's relentless perseverance, Clara's quiet growth, Elias's hopeful learning, and Mrs. Hale's gentle kindness all weave together into the warm, safe light that wraps around you tonight. You are part of this endless story of progress, part of the unbroken chain of hope that turns darkness into light, struggle into joy, and small dreams into world-changing miracles. Let go of every tight thought, every small tension in your body. Let your shoulders relax, your hands soften, your feet sink into the comfort of your mattress. The moon watches over you gently, the night breeze whispers soft lullabies, and the endless, clean power of our modern world keeps you safe and warm. Sleep deeply, rest fully, and wake tomorrow with a heart full of quiet courage, to keep trying, to keep dreaming, and to keep spreading light wherever you go.